This is Sleeping in Trees, the audiobook, and this is the epilogue. Nor could it ever again be. I set out to write this collection of stories in hopes of bringing back to life and saving colorful memories of my youth, and to reunite and reinvigorate, at least in spirit, through the power of words, a group of energetic, creative, and often mischievous young boys as they careened through adolescence and slammed head-on into their teen years during the 1960s. I hope I have succeeded. The Seattle move turned out to be a changer of the game, a massively disruptive event. I did not realize it at the time how profound an impact it would have. My brothers and I had become vital members of a cluster of youths whose antics defined our daily lives in a unique South Miami neighborhood over a period of many years. When we moved away, it was apparent that all of our worlds changed a great deal, literally overnight. The complex, interwoven social system that we had unknowingly created and refined over 14 formative years could only be sustained, in the end, by the presence of all the participants. In our absence, it frayed and fell apart. The connectivity of personalities, habits, activities, everyday routines, leadership, and the pecking order abruptly shifted the day we drove for the last time down Vista Lane. Our perfectly balanced mobile of quirky daily life went askew. Without every crew member in the mix, it couldn't possibly be as it once was. When we returned to Miami after one short year in Seattle, we moved to a neighborhood about 2 miles west of my boyhood home. If we had settled in Dubai instead, I do not believe I could have been more removed and disconnected from my former life and lifestyle. Thomas Wolfe's classic book, You Can't Go Home Again, makes the point well. Now a timeless cliché for sure, but for good reason. Within a few weeks, Ding paid a visit to Coral Reef Yacht Club. He returned a couple of hours later with the surprising news that Sarah and Amy had retired from the hot work behind the snack bar grill, and he had been unable to locate a single sailing chum. Perhaps 18-year-olds were now a bit out of place in 8-foot prams and had discovered more engaging and stimulating ways to spend their weekends. I vividly recall one evening not long after we had moved back. I decided to take a long walk to my old neighborhood and drop in on Dinkle and Dork. It was a strangely foreign land as I moved down the dark streets, even though I still knew every bump and bruise in the pavement below my feet. The energy I had felt countless times before was oddly missing, the comfortable familiarity absent. As I passed little Billy's house, I glanced at his dark side yard, hoping to make out the race course we had carved out with his dad's MG on a hot and humid Saturday afternoon 3 years earlier. I knew, of course, that no evidence would remain. Dork's garage door, usually open in the early evening, was closed. I approached his front door, hesitated, but then knocked firmly. I waited. No sounds came from inside. All was still. It struck me as odd that Dork's hyperactive poodle, Peppy, didn't erupt with his usual high-pitched staccato, name tags jangling from a bejeweled collar, accompanied by the scratching sounds his toenails made as he spun in frantic circles in the tile foyer on the other side of the door. I waited for what seemed like a long time, which made me uncomfortable and a bit disappointed. Turning around, I walked back down his driveway to the street and headed for Dinkle's. He was sitting in the patio room next to his pool, watching TV, with a girlfriend I had never met. She was blonde, very pretty, and soft-spoken. They were smoking cigarettes. We talked a bit about the past year, my new neighborhood, new friends, the Cascade Mountains, snow skiing, and how Dinkle had dropped out of high school. Shortly after we left Miami, He'd been a passenger in a serious car accident and was still dealing with reconstructive surgery and physical therapy. I'd had no idea. He fell so far behind in school, he said, that he just quit. As Dinkle recounted his struggles, I noticed a large scar that stretched from his forehead along the side of his nose to his upper lip. He said he would be fully healed before long and had decided to build yachts. He and his girlfriend might move to North Carolina. I asked where his mom was, and he said she was right where she always was at night, hiding in her back bedroom, having some dinner, some peace, watching TV. When kids morph into teens, their lives shift spasmodically. They hop from bikes straight into automobiles, vehicles of immense freedom, which instantly obliterate all boundaries of youth. Hormones kick in, and supposedly they begin to mature. Libidos rise up. In some, it's a tumultuous quantum shift and a heck of a lot to process in short order. The dynamics become a bit overwhelming for anyone on the journey, or innocent bystanders that get too close to the fray. Into the maelstrom, my parents had decided to toss in a cross-country move. Before long, our conversation began to stumble awkwardly through pockets of silence, and the three of us ran out of things to talk about. I stood and shook Dinkle's hand and said good night. I never knew his hands to be so rough. Perhaps those of a boat builder, I thought. We agreed to catch up soon, but in the vagaries of teenage life, it never happened. I walked past the pool and out through the screen door into his side yard. Straight ahead was a grassy runway of sorts that ran along the edge of the promontory from which we had inadvertently attempted to incinerate a police cruiser 2 years before with our first and last Molotov cocktail. The runway was bordered by a low coral rock wall on the left full of exotic tropical plantings, and more of the same on the right up against the Scottish clan's house. It terminated with a small hump that had, countless times before, launched us either on foot or by bike into the air as we raced along at full speed. A single floodlight shone down from the eaves, illuminating this special spot, and the grass glistened from the evening's dewfall. I thought of taking a good run and jump, but just walked over it instead. As I headed back up the dark and empty streets toward home, I was burdened by a cloud of melancholy. I had only been gone a single year, but realized that, in the most sober of terms, everything had changed. My journey of exuberant youth had passed, and my favorite former world had spun away. Virtually nothing was the same, nor could it ever again be like it ever was before. Shuffling into the kitchen, I found Dad, Lobster, Mr. Horrible, and Ding sitting at the kitchen table. A Yorkie napped on a chair. They were debating the potential market opportunity of a new fastener Dad had invented. He had filed for a patent. The clever device, from the outside in, enabled a boat builder to insert a threaded stainless steel backplate inside a sealed fiberglass hull. This eliminated screws and rivets, which were typically worked loose by the teeth-rattling vibration produced when any boat repeatedly bounds and bangs over the waves. It was an ingenious solution to a chronic, age-old problem. Lobster was convinced the market was enormous, and the millions. Ding agreed. Dad was not so sure, nor was I. Mr. Horrible fidgeted with a tennis racket. Over at the stove, Mom, smoking a cigarette and sipping an old-fashioned, was putting the final touches on a glorious chicken fricassee, accompanied by fluffy minute rice, warm popovers, and sweet buttered corn. I was starving. Even though much had changed, many very good things remained the same. The end.